Welcome to the Print Adda. Just earlier this week, the Assam government announced that Aadhaar cards will now not be given starting 1st of October to most adults other than those who hail from SC, ST, and Tea Garden communities. This is not obviously a lone instance. We have seen over the last few years, in fact, Assam government being in the news for mass evictions. Just earlier this year, the government also launched a portal to basically allow arms licenses to indigenous communities in order to protect the demography of the bordering state. To talk about all of this and what is basically happening in Assam, we have with us at the Political Adda Sushmita Dev, who is a TMC MP, and I'm also joined by Saurav Barman, my colleague, who you all are familiar with. Sushmita, to begin with, could you just give me your first impression of this, what the government has just announced regarding not giving Aadhaar cards to most adults in the state?
See, Assam has become an absolute laboratory for the Bharatiya Janata Party for various issues. On top of the list is citizenship. I think number two is delimitation, which was done on the 2001 outdated census without a delimitation committee. And this entire incident of not giving Aadhaar cards from 1st of October to adults above the age of 18 is um in line with the narrative that the Assam government has been following for the last several years since BJP came to power. The problem is that the entire issue of infiltration was very heavily pushed by Home Minister Amit Shah and the BJP government in Assam. And their decimation started with the NRC failing. So, because they failed on the issue of NRC, the BJP government in Assam is consistently trying to, um, if you like, highlight the fact or constantly trying to hide the failure of the NIC and say and give a message, a political narrative to the people of Assam that they are very serious on infiltration, whereas they've actually failed on that issue. Now, if you look at the Aadhaar card issue, I think anybody who reads the act knows that Aadhaar is given to citizens of India, and today the Supreme Court has passed a judgment saying you'll have to allow it to the Election Commission of India. Everyone also knows that any legitimate entrant from any other country like USA or anywhere in Europe who stayed 180 days continuously in this country can also apply for Aadhaar. So, strictly speaking, of course, everybody who holds a Aadhaar card is not a citizen. It's common sense, because it's in the act. But what the Assam government has done by passing this law, by saying that it's at 103%, is covering up their utter and total failure on solving the problem of infiltration. Now, first of all, Aadhaar is something that's within the jurisdiction of the central government. It is not a subject matter of the state government. So, how is the state government even taking cabinet decisions? Citizenship is a central subject. How is the chief minister of Assam taking unilateral decisions on deportation, on pushing back, on Aadhaar card, on NRC? So, it is a desperate attempt by the BJP to hold on to power in Assam by polarizing the issue of citizenship and especially religion to hold on to power because they're losing ground. So it's a plethora of things. They keep shifting the goalposts and not allowing an Aadhaar card to adults after 1st of October is exactly about that.
And talking about the large scale evictions that have happened, and obviously it has been alleged that most of the evictions have been targeting Bengali speaking Muslims. So, as someone who is in Assam with party workers on the ground, uh, give us a sense of what is really happening and what is happening now with those families who have been, there were over 1,000 families. What's happening with those people?
You see that this is a government that has been in power for 10 years in Assam. what they call the double engine sarkar. Now, the first question is the timing of the eviction. That why have you waited for 10 years to start eviction, and why 6 months before election? That itself it tells you that this is to impact votes. So it is a part of the larger anti-Muslim narrative, these evictions. Now, the evictions that are happening, they are saying this is government land and we are taking it back. Fine. I know the Supreme Court has repeatedly said on encroachment on government land, and Supreme Court has also given pretty many strictures to governments to say it has to be controlled. I respect those judgments. But the point is, Chief Minister of Assam is connecting eviction to demography. He's saying the demography of Assam is changing. That's why I'm doing this eviction. Now, if you remove 1,000 families from a single area, are these people going to leave Assam? Are these people going to leave India? Of course not. So, how does eviction save Assam from change in demography? And we even don't know what the exact number or the profiling or what the demography is, because the census, the new census is yet to happen. This is nothing except for stunts, I would say, so that they win the election. And it's a big, big cover up, because a government that came to power thumping their chest on solving the issue of infiltration, brought the CAA, saying we are going to save all the Hindu Bengalis from, being deported to Bangladesh. All these issues have failed. Only two people have got citizenship under CAA in Assam, as per the reply of the minister of the Assam government. So this is a big cover up, and it's inhuman. I want to, it's a very important point, because we are people who believe in a written constitution in this country. When you look at right to life, it doesn't use the word citizenship. It says every person has a right to life in this country. So it allows everybody a right to life who is within the boundaries of our country. But in Assam, like I said, it's a laboratory for everything that has gone wrong, and it's constant shifting of goals. And eviction is one such thing to tell the Hindus, or to tell the people of Assam that, look, we are removing these foreigners. They are Bengali Muslims. They are from Bangladesh. They are not our people. Whereas they all have documents. They all have documents. They're not looking at NRC documents. They are not looking at land papers. They are not looking at voters list. Nothing. Just issuing notices, and in some case, no notices, taking bulldozers and evicting. So they have created mayhem in Assam. Mayhem, all for elections, 6 months before elections. That's what's happening.
I want this conversation to also delve into history of Assam a little. You know, Anxieties tied to land and migration date back decades in Assam. It's nothing new, and we have seen past
Right.
governments also grappling with the same issue, including the Tarun
Yeah.
Gogoi government, which in fact till date the Congress party in Assam takes pride in the fact that the Tarun Gogoi government actually set in motion that process, which eventually culminated into the NRC, which took place under the BJP government. So, in that context, how difficult is it for an opposition party like the Trinamool Congress to actually craft a position on this issue? Because this issue has resonance among a large section of the Assamese society. They actually feel that some sort of demographic shift is being engineered in the state.
You see, when our chairperson of the Trinamool Congress came to campaign during the Lok Sabha elections, and she came to Silchar, as you may remember, she categorically said no NRC and no CEA. She didn't mince her words, Saurabh. In an open meeting, she said it. Now, all the Assamese Hindus that you're talking about, Saurabh, explain to me that who has achieved what under the NRC. People of Assam have realized that 6 years from 2013 to 2019, under a Supreme Court monitored process of updating the NRC, we couldn't achieve anything. First, 40 lakhs people were out, eventually 19 lakh people were out. What is absurd is people whose names were included in NRC have no guarantee saying that they are citizens. And those who are outside the NRC can't appeal, can't do anything, can't challenge that order, can't apply under CAA because NRC has not been notified by the Registrar General of India. So the Chief Minister of Assam, he actually uses this incomplete NRC when it suits him. Like he's saying, I will not give you an Aadhaar card unless you applied under NRC. Okay. And this is the unnotified NRC. Then he's saying during eviction that even if your name is in the NRC, I don't care. I'm going to evict you. So it has been used as and when they want to. So when Mamata Banerjee took a strong stand against NRC and CA, of course, that time she was talking about the Bengal perspective when it first came into play. And at that time, Assam may have thought we don't agree with Mamata Di. But today, after an incomplete NRC and a useless unconstitutional law like CAA, I am sure that the staunch Assamese Hindu also knows that CAA and NRC has given nothing to no one, to no community. I think that is a foregone conclusion.
No, also on the question of, again, on the question of migration and land, you are a politician with your roots deeply rooted in Assam. So you spoke about how, in a way, you've also acknowledged that infiltration is a problem in Assam. So what would be your vision in tackling this issue? You
See,
clearly, huh?
see, to my mind, as a parliamentarian and a lawmaker, it's very simple. Today, you cannot have people who are stateless. You cannot have stateless people in Assam. So, the process is to identify them, to detect them, which the foreigners tribunals are supposed to do, and then you have to deport them in cooperation with the Bangladesh government. So, everything else, Saurav, is politics. Everything else is politics. I think the day the issue of foreigners and NRC, uh, uh, you know, leaves the narrative, I don't even know what the politics of Assam will be about. You know how the Assam agitation started in 79, then Assam Accord was signed, then came the Biplab Sharma Committee on, Clause 6 of Assam Accord, then came the CAA, then came the NRC updating, none of which has given us a solution. Not a single one of them. It's just an election issue, it comes and goes. Assam is the only state which has two classes of citizens. Like Chief Minister of Assam wakes up in the morning and says, you are the son of the soil, you are not, you are the son of the soil, you are not. Who are you to decide that? What is the criteria? Take the example of Bengalis of Assam. We were part of the of the Bengal Sultanate, and then districts like Kachar, undivided Kachar, Gwalpara, we were brought into Assam in 1876. But have you ever heard the Assam government says to the Hindu Bengalis or the Bengali Muslims of Assam that have been a part of Assam since 1876 that we are sons of the soil? They don't. Why? Because our language. If you take our language as a criteria, they don't want to give it because it will be controversial. No government will do it. But if you look at our history, we've been here for centuries. So this is all politics. So if you're asking me what is my solution, and if I was at the helm of FS, nobody is in favor of foreigners. Not Mamata Banerjee, not the Congress, not the AGP, not the BJP, but the politics that revolves around infiltration, it just keeps changing and taking a different form in Assam. But actually, there's no solution. And the only solution is to detect them, look at their papers, and deport them after discussing with Bangladesh or whichever other country they can. There is no other solution. Rest is all hogwash and rest is all politics. So that would be my solution.
Speaking of people who are indigenous to Assam, the government also came up with this new portal, basically making it easier for people who are from indigenous communities in sensitive areas to get licenses for arms. Now, tell us, what are the perils of something like that? Could it really spiral out of control, the situation with if arms are given more easily to people?
See, I'm telling you, this is my view, that BJP is losing ground in Assam. So, Chief Minister of Assam is coming up with various stunts with every cabinet decision only to change the narrative in favor of the BJP. Now, take the example of armed licenses. He's saying we'll give it to the indigenous people. Can anybody in the entire country define to me, tell me what is the definition of indigenous? Where does this word come from? It's not in the Assam Accord. Please read it. It first came, the word indigenous, in the Biplab Sharma committee, which was set up to look at the implementation of Clause 6 of the Assam Accord. Suddenly, this word indigenous came in the Home Ministry's notification. India has gone to the United Nations, said everybody who's been in India since independence is indigenous. We cannot have any other definition. The only definition we have is of scheduled tribes. So this again, but no one is thinking and no one is listening. So Dr. Hemanta Biswa Sharma says, if you're indigenous, we will give you an arm license. Now tell me, a chief minister who's himself the home minister of a state is telling his citizens who live in Assam that the Assam police cannot protect you. Today, if I take a gun thinking I'm going to protect myself from infiltrators, now tell me, if I use it, will it give me immunity from prosecution? Never. And look up any study in the world. Having a weapon has never made anybody safer. You only become more unsafe. You read any amount of data on Amnesty or any other data, you will see. So what is this? It's a gimmick. Just like the CAA was a gimmick with only 2 people getting citizenship. And I'm telling you, wait for 3 months. Let's file an RTI and let's see how many people have taken a weapon. No one's going to take it. This is his way of saying that I'm anti-infiltrators. BJP is committed to taking out infiltrators because in reality, they have not been able to deliver on the issue of infiltration. That's all it's about. I mean, how can you give people a gun? Giving a license to a person for a weapon, is it a license to kill? It's not. So anybody who uses it in self-defense or whatever you want to call it is liable to be prosecuted. People have understood that. No one's going to take this gun license. In fact, he has put the Assam police, he's put the Assam police in the dock, saying they can't protect you, and he's the Home Minister of Assam. What a foolish thing to do. And people understand that. Who's going to take a gun and who's going to certify who's indigenous? This is all, yeah, tell me.
This entire infiltration narrative, now it's becoming more and more national. Even the Prime Minister spoke about it during his Independence Day speech. And before that, we saw a lot of Bengali migrants from even places in Delhi, Gurgaon, etc. Being almost, there were statements that they were forced to leave. Now, it seemed like TMC was the only party that sort of spoke on this issue. So, do you find that the TMC is kind of alone in this battle because it was the only party that was more or less talking about this linguistic terrorism and so on?
See, I have to say the Trinamool Congress is the only party that has raised this issue of racial profiling on the basis of language. If you go to a Jai Hind colony, or you go to Haryana, Rajasthan, wherever they are pushing back people from the border, after the habeas corpus petitions, it has been proved beyond doubt that they are citizens. It has even been reported that genuine citizens have been pushed back, and now Bangladesh is filing a case against our citizens who have been pushed back by the Indian government to say you are infiltrating in Bangladesh. How embarrassing it is for a country like India. And yes, if anybody stood up for these people, it is Trinamool Congress. Definitely it's Trinamool Congress. Why? If you're not going to accept my voter ID, if you're not going to accept my Aadhaar card, if you're not going to accept my ration card, if you're not going to accept my land papers, then how do you know or how do you decide that I am a foreigner or that I may be a foreigner one single way is language. You will not see any other person, not a Gorkha person. Okay. Nobody else has been targeted for deportation and pushback except for Bengali speaking people. And 90% of whom are Muslims, yes, but let's not forget, we have given names, and Rajbonshi people, Hindu Bengali people are also being served notice by the Foreigners Tribunal of Assam in the state of West Bengal. What kind of legality are they following? And why is Mr. Modi doing it? Because he spoke about it on 15th of August. The first question we all should ask him, that this is the 11th year in power. Why have you raised it now? Because they are also connecting it to SIR. The harassment of the people that has started on the ground, asking for papers and showing papers when elections are coming within months, it is to justify why they are doing it. That's saying, oh, look, the demography of this country is changing, and they are deciding who's going to be the government. So the two things are connected. The special intensive revision, they're justifying that revision on the grounds of infiltration. Why did you not do it for 11 years? How many times has Mr. Modi been to Bangladesh? Has he ever had any bilateral talks on increase in infiltration or demography? No, never. This is just a politics of polarization. This is consolidating his vote bank, which is, whether we like it or not, has an anti-Muslim and anti-Bangladesh narrative. That's all it is.
Now, since we are discussing language, so we also saw BJP social media chief Amit Malviya saying how Sileti is not really comprehensible to a lot of Indians. Now, both of us come from the region where we have Sileti speakers all around us, and in fact, Silchar has a BJP MP. So, how has that really played out among the people? How are people receiving that statement? Have you seen any pushback from the people,
You
from
know,
Sileti speakers of the
after,
region?
after Amit Malviya said this, various cultural organizations took to the street peacefully. They gathered and they spoke out against it. Because clearly, what the mouthpiece of the BJP, Amit Malviya, said, like Mamata he calls him Malpua. You know what he said is in total ignorance of the fact whether you want to call Sylheti a dialect or whether you want to call it a language. There is some debate on that. It has been here for since before the referendum. My father, my grandfather, my grandfather's father, all of them have spoken in Sylheti, and we know that what is now Karimganj or Shribhum was a part of Sylhet. And after partition, it came to India. We've been speaking this language for centuries. So it is Amit Malviya basically shot himself in the foot, trying to save himself from the embarrassment of calling Bengali a Bangladeshi language. He tried to justify it and say, look, we called it Bangladeshi as a generic term because it also has Sylheti. I mean, what kind of foolish, ignorant statement is that? And we don't have Sylhetis in Barak Valley only. With due respect to, Gaurav Gogoi, who said Bengalis are in Barak Valley only in his tweet. Today, Siletis and Bengalis, Shihatto Shommelon is a organization, cultural organization of the Siletis, which operates in Bombay, which operates in Calcutta, which operates in Chhattisgarh, which operates in Gujarat, is all over the country because Sileti speaking people are everywhere. So Amit Malviya is a ignorant, totally ignorant on that, and sometimes he is more loyal than the king and ends up shooting himself in the foot, which he did. And let me confirm to you, it was a matter of big sentiment, and a lot of people took to the streets. We did a dharna from Trinamool Congress in the 3 districts, and as did non-political organizations.
I'll briefly take you back to the issue of eviction drives in Assam. So, now the opposition has also been alleging that these evictions are somehow connected to big businesses, how these are being done to benefit big businesses. Uh, I mean, outside of Assam. So now the state government is trying to justify it, holding up high court orders, saying, look, we have high court orders which say these drives are needed to reduce man animal conflict. So, do you really have any evidence to substantiate your claims that the state government is trying to essentially benefit corporates?
See, look what happened in Dima Hasao. And the High Court judge, you saw his comment because it went viral on social media saying, what 3,000 vigas in such a small district, NC Hills, which we used to traditionally call. See, uh, Chief Minister of Assam is not only grabbing or evicting people to give land to industrialists, but he is notorious for also amassing huge amounts of land which is owned by his own family members. This is wrong. Today, please understand, obviously no court is going to say that you can encroach on illegal land, but this is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. It has to show compassion. These are human beings. The Supreme Court or the High Court may have said anything about taking back land. Can you today justify a government evicting thousands of families? Where are they going? Is it not going to increase crime in a state like Assam? Is it not going to increase joblessness in Assam? Is it not going to create more poverty in Assam? Is that not the duty of the government? So the question is, they are saying, oh, wherever it suits them in Bodoland, they're saying, oh, we need this land to give it to Adani Group or whichever group. Why shouldn't Bodoland develop? Then they're saying, no, it's because of the demography. Then they're saying, no, it's a high court. So it's a various things. But all of it is geared towards elections, which is going to happen in the next 6 months. And you watch, after 6 months, he's going to sing some different tune altogether. So I am not pro people grabbing land. I am not pro infiltration, but I'm sorry, but these issues are being used, misused, abused by the BJP government in Assam because they have totally failed. They've totally failed on their jati mati beti to say घुसपैठिए को निकाल देंगे, to say हम NRC करेंगे, हम ये करेंगे, हम वो करेंगे. They have achieved nothing on those accounts. So all this is damage control, nothing else, and it's inhuman. It's going to harm Assam. People of Assam are being divided, and I'm telling you, the BJP is losing ground in Upper Assam. So the eviction is to appease that Assamese statement, Assamese sentiment, nothing else.
Sushmita, you mentioned the elections in Assam, which are due in the next 6 months. Now, the Congress made Gaurav Gogoi the new party chief, but in the last 1 year, we've seen that the TMC is kind of reeling under factionalism. We've had two different party chiefs in the last 1 year itself. Can you give us a sense of what is happening in the TMC in Assam?
You see, Trinamool Congress, it's not the first time that they've come to Assam. You may have known that in the past, there was an elected MLA, Dipen Pathak. So Trinamool has always been in states like Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, etc. But yes, after I joined the party, the momento was much more. Now Trinamool Congress in that sense, is a new party. So Trinamool Congress on its own cannot defeat the BJP. If I told you otherwise, it would be a complete misrepresentation of facts. So if a party which can give 126 candidates to fight the BJP, and it has to be the Indian National Congress. But the fact is that Trinamool has a role to play in the opposition. We actually did better in the panchayat election than a party like Lurin Jyoti's party. If you see our strike rate, we did better than Lurin party. But yes, we have not engaged in any talks of alliance and all of that since Ripun Bora, left the party. I have not engaged in any conversation, and I think that our role is still in the opposition. So we cannot pitch in this 26 election that we are going to form the government. But I'm telling you, from the ground, what I can see is Congress is a 140-year-old party, but Congress is a lot of rot inside it. And that's where Trinamool Congress comes. So we come as a fresh alternative where Congress messes things up for whatever reason. I don't want to get into it. It may be a quid pro quo or whatever. So that's what I noticed in the Panchayat election. So I am not going to pitch very high to say, oh, we're going to win 30, 40 seats. No, not at all. But we are definitely in the reckoning, and we're definitely going to contest 2026. And I'm hoping that we will be a tactical player in the 2026 election and help in defeating the BJP.
No, you're saying essentially two things. That firstly, the BJP government is facing headwinds, and there's a lot of anti-incumbency, including in Upper Assam. Secondly, you are saying the TMC is not in a position to directly challenge the BJP at this point, and the Congress continues to be that player. So, in that context, now you are a part of the India bloc, but you are not really electoral allies anywhere. So, can we expect that to happen in Assam in 2026? Any sort of understanding between the Congress and the TMC? What do you feel? What is your personal opinion? Should that happen?
See, I am of the view there are two factors. One is Bengal and Assam election almost happen simultaneously. So what will happen in Assam will depend on Chairperson Mamata Banerjee and what transpires in Bengal. But I can tell you something that if the Congress, this is my view, if the Congress doesn't manage all these parties in 2026, they stand to lose several seats.
Including TMC, you're saying?
Yeah, they should find a way to enter upon some sort of an electoral understanding, provided the High Command of Congress and our High Command agree. But otherwise, short of which, I feel that Congress stands to lose. So how they're going to manage it, I don't know. If my opinion is asked, I have told the party that my only condition is no matter what, we have to contest. Now it is just like it is for Mamata Di to show her large heartedness in Bengal. It is for Congress to make sacrifices in Assam to adjust other parties. So, short of that, nothing's going to come out of it. But I personally feel there should be some sort of an arrangement. But then it didn't happen in Lok Sabha, as you know, Saurabh. Right in February, I was told, end of February, that no, we are going alone. What had we asked for? We had said, give us the Silchar seat, give us the Kokrajhar seat, and give us the Tura seat in Meghalaya, and y'all take, and Congress should take 3, 4 seats in Bengal. But because of Adhir Ranjit, it didn't work out. So this time, what's going to happen, I don't know, but it is purely and squarely Mamata Di's call. So beyond this, I don't think I can commit to any stand.
Hmm. But do you feel? I mean, which is the area where you think the TMC can potentially dent the Congress? Is it mostly Lower Assam or other parts of Assam as well?
See, I'll tell you, if I told you that, oh, we are doing very well in Upper Assam, I don't think that would be correct. But there are certain seats in Tinsukia, there are certain seats in Lakhimpur, there are certain seats in Dibrugarh, where if you look at the MLA seat, we have a unit and we have aspiring candidates. So I don't think we can spread ourselves very much in Upper Assam. Having said that, we will contest seats in Upper Assam, which we also did in the Lok Sabha. Apart from that, Barak Valley, Lower Assam, Middle Assam, all these areas, we will be giving candidates. If there's an understanding, then I don't know what will happen. But we are already in the process of identifying these seats. And in fact, the first list has already been submitted.
Right. One last question before Sani asks. Uh, again on TMC and Congress equations. I also recently interviewed Gaurav Gogoi, and we spoke about the Congress equations with AIUDF. Now they have been electoral allies in the past, but Mr. Gogoi says, AIUDF essentially is a communal party, so we are not going to have any track with this party in the future. So, what is the TMC's position on maybe on any agreements with AIUDF, Mr. Badruddin Ajmal?
I'll tell you something. Congress party tied up with Badaruddin Ajmal in 2021. Okay. So now to call him communal, with all due respect to Mr. Gogoi, is a very, tall figure in Assam. It flies in the face of the fact that they tied up with him. So AUDF has not suddenly turned communal. Okay, since 21 to 25, they have not. If they were communal, then they were always communal. My take is as follows: that what has happened to AUIDF in the Lok Sabha election is they have been exposed as a party that helps the Bharatiya Janata Party win. So they have played their cards wrong, and now the minority community does not believe that AUIDF can look after their interests or can represent them in a way that they need to do and fight the BJP. So AUIDF has lost political credibility. That is the reason the Indian National Congress is now deciding that AUIDF is untouchable. If my leader asks me, my stand is very clear. Under no circumstances will I accept a alliance. I'm talking about myself. I don't think I would accept an alliance with AUIDF because they do not have credibility in the eyes of the people of Assam. So they have lost all credibility, and the way their vote share fell in the Lok Sabha, and the way Badaruddin Ajmal Saab was met with anger from the people of Assam, I've never seen something like that happen to him in the past. So I think he's not going to be a very big force in the coming 26 elections.
The TMC also had plans to expand in other states in the Northeast, and you are actually the principal opposition party in Meghalaya. But even in Meghalaya, we've seen the party right now kind of facing a sort of existential crisis. The state TMC chief is not even sure about the party post 2028. So what's happening there?
See, we are now in Kerala, we are in Meghalaya, we are in Assam. In Tripura, we have a unit, but we don't have a president. See, I'll tell you, going national, there are two issues. As you know, we lost the status in the eyes of the Election Commission of India as a national party. So now we are a state recognized party in Meghalaya. We are a regional party. You see, today being recognized by Election Commission of India has one criteria. I don't want to, repeat those sections here. But apart from that, a party that calls itself All India Trinamool Congress, okay, doesn't need the validation of the Election Commission of India to work outside their own state or their mother state, if you like, Bengal. Now you're talking about Meghalaya and Mukul Sangma. You're talking about, Kerala also, Anwarji contested. See, Saurabh, Mamta Banerjee is not going to give up her vision, her national vision. She has had a foot in the door in these states even before I joined. We've had MLAs in Manipur also who left. So if you like parties like the Aam Aadmi Party, a party like Trinamool Congress, and a party like, I can't remember the name, Athawale ji, the tribal party, these parties will always exist all over the country. But having said that, it's a dichotomy. You can't write them off. It's a long haul. But you can't write them off. And building a party in states, building a cadre in states. Similarly, I think Samajwadi is also in many states, as you know. It is a long haul. Like when I joined Mahotadi, I said I've signed up for something very, you know, it's a uphill climb, but it's okay. I signed up for it. So we are always going to have problems, like you're talking about Meghalaya and you're talking about other issues. Yes, we are facing obstacles and hurdles, but I don't think Mamata will very easily backtrack from her national plans. It may have its ups and downs. That is the reality of our politics. But I don't think she's backing out of her national plan.
I'll just zoom out a little bit from Assam, and my last question, that during the MPs protests in Delhi, even your images were splashed all over. I want to understand from you as an opposition leader, how do you see both the vote chori campaign panning out going ahead? Because now the Supreme Court has already, in the case of Bihar, asked the ECI to upload the names of all the 65 lakh people whose names were deleted. Um, now, how do you plan to take, as just as an opposition leader, what do you think the strategy should be now?
It's very simple. SIR has already started in Assam. There's not much being written in the media, but from what I hear on the ground, they are already started going door to door. Now, what is the problem with this? What we have to see, no one knows better than the people of Assam that how tedious an exercise it is to show papers. Because we showed papers for 6 years and yet we don't have a completed NRC. So people of Assam, if you like, are trained and they know what happens with paperwork. It is very simple. What we have to explain to the people is no one is denying the fact that the ECI has the constitutional power to review voters' roll. But it is a match fixing that we have to target. What is the match fixing? On the one hand, they are deleting names of genuine voters by making proof, the documentation for proof a very tedious, a very tedious process. And on the other hand, duplicate voters with wrong addresses, different photographs, 80, 90, 100 people in one address, they are inserting false voters. So it is a multi-prong, it's a double, if you like, it's a double jeopardy. It's a double mischief. It's two mischiefs. Deleting genuine names, inserting false voters into the voters list of different states. So I think what we have to make sure that our political cadre ensures that not a single genuine voter is left out. And I have to say that Trinamool Congress and other parties who filed the petition in Supreme Court, if we had not filed, it would have been an absolute disaster for a democracy like ours. And I think Election Commission of India has cut such a sorry figure in this country. It is the undoing of the Commission. And I think this was the final nail in their coffin of credibility. That press conference done by the Chief Election Commissioner, my head hangs in shame to hear him speak the way he did.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sushmita, for joining us for this edition of
Thank you so
Political
much,
Adda.
Saurav, Sanya. Good to talk to you.